Let's kick it off by talking about when you adapt something. You know, I've had this conversation with Robert Kirkman a number of times. Wants to give something to even the loyal fans. So changing the story, changing beats, changing what happens is okay as long as the tone remains the same. Do you both feel that way about?
Yeah, it's a tough balance to strike. You want to make sure that the fans are happy, but at the same time, you don't want to bore them with the same exact story beat for beat. And what they've done is really expand on the story in ways that are very true to the comic, and they give us all these great character moments and they're able to flesh out the war, the time war between the old timers and the teenagers in a way that we can only hint at in the comic.
Yeah, 100%. It was all just additive. There was never anything they're like, we can't do this stuff that I imagined. Like, we have beautifully designed Cliff Chiang giant robots, but you can't put that in a TV show, and yet they do. So, yeah, they captured everything from the book, and then they're like, well, what more can we do with our real estate? We only had 30 issues, 5 panels a page, There's only so much you can do. We keep talking about Mac's brother as a character who shows up a couple times in the comic, but now the TV show we get to spend, big, long, deep scenes with them that I think we were so jealous that we didn't get to do that in the book. They were like, it's perfect. It was perfect.
What do you guys say about the performance of these young ladies? Like, how impressed were you with what they brought?
It was unreal when we saw the casting photos and clips and stuff, because they looked like they came out of the comic. But then once they start talking and acting, you believe them, and that's really hard to find in young actors. And they sell it so completely that when you're watching it, you just fall into the story. You believe every moment of it, and then when things go haywire and all the action starts happening, you feel that too. So it's maybe the best thing about it is everything that that alchemy that happens once you have actors in there, and that energy changes.
Yeah.
Speaking of casting, Jason Matsuka says grandpa. Oh my god. I didn't even have in my mind who would work for it, but as soon as he showed up on screen, amazing. Talk about that. Is that dream casting for you as well, Brian?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, and it's so cool that Jason's a fan of the comic. He introduced Ali Wong to Paper Girls. Their friends, so to bring him in, it was like, this is, it feels like it was always our intention to have him, because you can't imagine anyone else. But I'm just a fan of his podcast in general, his comedy, and just like, what an exciting villain to bring into a show. An antagonist, I'd say, because he's not a villain. He feels like a fully fleshed, three-dimensional human being, and it's just what he brings to the show is huge. So yeah, it's a thrill.
Okay, cool. Mr. Brian, you're in the comic industry. You're always known as BKV, right? And I'm just wondering, how about outside comics in the entertainment industry? Do they still call you as BKV or
sure?
Brian?
I think it was something that I started to make it easier on you fine folks, because my last name is so obnoxiously hard to spell. Vaughan. That's too many letters for a one-syllable name.
Yeah.
So like BKV is fine. But sure, it's sweet. I don't care what you call me as long as you buy my comics. You can call me Dirtbag. I'll take it.
And music has always been a big inspiration in the 80s, right? Whose music inspired you guys? When you guys were developing Paper Girls?
Yeah.
You guys listen to?
I mean, I love 80s music. I think it's just maybe growing up at that time. But even as an adult, now I've gone back to listen to bands that I wasn't listening to back then. And, the 80s was so full of cool bands like The Cure, Depeche Mode, and that stuff definitely plays into there's a Depeche Mode poster in Aaron's bedroom in the comic and stuff like that. And then other things from the 80s that you maybe don't even think about, like Nine Inch Nails. Those are albums that to me reminded me of my teenage years, and I wanted to bring some of that energy to the book.
Yeah, not to be mainstream Johnny, but I'll throw out Van Halen, because I remember being 8 years old and my babysitter Diane came over and she was on our landline constantly calling a radio station. She's like, there's this song Jump. I heard it a few days ago. I need to hear it again. Just calling, requesting it. And when that song came on the radio and she lost her mind, I was like, I guess this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, Jump still has a special place in my heart.
Now, Brian, you've been a showrunner. Here, you're a creative consultant. Let's say, you know, let Christopher Rogers do his thing.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your involvement, and then for you, Cliff. Chris told us that he may even come to you more in terms of, you know, aesthetic and design, working with DPs for season 2. So talk a little bit about finding that balance of this is your baby, but you also want to lean on Chris's talents.
Yeah, I guess this is what I've learned now, having been adapted, having worked on other people's adaptations, that the important job as a creator is first of all just to find the right partners at the beginning. When you find those right partners, to give them space. I'd say, like, if you loved our comic, it's just Cliff and I put so much of ourselves into it, and if this TV show is going to work, you're going to have to put a lot of yourself, and the writers in this room are going to have to put a lot of themselves in it. So don't be intimidated. Don't feel like, oh, we have to do this beat for beat, boring adaptation. So I think it's just hang on loosely is the way to be a good partner in this.
Yeah, the production asked me to put together some visual notes and show them some of my inspiration for the comic. There were reasons why the capsule looks a certain way. There's a reason why the robots look different from each other, and they assimilated all that information and, you know, kept it in mind as they were developing it. And you know, you can see from like their wardrobe choices and the locations, like they really wanted to stay true to this feel in the comics. There were details, there were storytelling details in all the visuals, and you know, so they kept that, and you know, it's really rewarding to see that, and it just, you know, and I think that's what helps the show, you know, really stay true to the tone of the comics, as well as expand on it. They can do things with locations and designs that really, you know, sell the 80s and make you feel like it's a real lived-in neighborhood.
Fantastic. This show's amazing.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. It's good.
I'm just
It's,
curious.
I'm gonna need that too.
yeah.
I'm going to ask this standard question, which is if you opened the door and your younger self was there, what would be one thing you want to tell them?
Yeah, I'd say none of those creams or pills are going to work. You're going to lose that hair, kid, and it's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be all right. Someday, you're going to get to work on a super cool TV show, and it makes having all your hair fall out worthwhile. How about you, Cliff?
Yeah, for me it would be, yeah, chill out. Like, you know, you got this where you're gonna end up where you want to be, and you can't stress about it too much on your way there, but just try and enjoy the ride.
I just want to say personally, I'm so sorry about Why the Last Man series.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, dude.
Man, you know, I would always rather have one cool season, you know, than 10 seasons something I didn't love. And I loved what they did.
I know,
so.
I've been waiting for that for 10 years. Like,
Yeah, thanks. Well, let's get 7 more seasons out of this one. Thanks for spreading the word, you guys.